minutes after 12. I asked a member of management today whether or not I could have a little jingle made up for a new feature on the programme that I've decided to call Wokewatch. I even sang it to him. And I'm not going to lie to you, the response was less than enthusiastic. It may have been a result of my singing, which you won't be astonished to learn is, well, let's just say I'm no Peter Andre. But it may also have been a response to my editorial judgment, in which case heads will roll. Because it is time. Wasn't Andrew Neil going to do Wokewatch during his ill-fated, short-lived association with GBBs? I'm sure he was. And I thought at the time we should do it the other way round. Instead of all these old gammons pretending to be angry or genuinely getting frightened about completely normal stuff, like, I don't know, vegan sausage rolls. We should take the mickey out of the use of the word woke and call it Wokewatch. Do you want me to sing it? Shall I sing it to you? No. Yes? Oh, no, we've got a 52-48 divide in the production booth. I shall wait and see, but if management are listening, I'm not sure they ever do. I can't think how else I get away with this every day. But if management are actually listening, I was deadly serious. In my cheeky, chappy way, I may have given the impression that I was being, comical or insincere, but I really want to do it. I'm definitely going to do Wokewatch, whether or not I can have a little jingle. Wokewatch. No, stop it. Wokewatch. Same surprise, Wokewatch. It's time for Wokewatch. Something like that, maybe. I don't know. But time will tell. I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to do the feature. It just seems nice. Other people are playing little bits of jingles all the time. Some people can't talk about old television programmes without playing about 30 theme tunes in one. I just want a little bit of a Wokewatch. We shall see. 5 minutes after 12. Anyway, here's the theme tune to Vicar of Dibley. That was a joke. We turn our attention now to a school in... Where is it? England somewhere, that has decided to get rid of meat. And listen, this is the way it gets written. You don't even need to check which paper. Parents have blasted a ludicrous rule forcing pupils at a primary school to become vegetarian to help the planet. Right, point one, you cannot force a pupil at a primary school to become a vegetarian, can you? Not unless you follow them home with a meat detector and rip from their little fingers anything that remotely resembles a sausage. You can't do it. You cannot make children be vegetarian if you're their head teacher. The rule was introduced last year. This is the best bit of the story. These people who are so determined to get angry about things, in this case it's parents. It's a school in Lancashire, Barrowford Primary School in Lancashire, has banned meat from lunchboxes and its canteen in order to educate children about the environmental impact of eating animals. The rule was introduced last year, but parents were not told until a letter was sent out by the school on Thursday, in which the head teacher obviously explained that her decision had been taken in order to stop climate change. Now, I hate these stories, but I also love them. I hate these stories because this is a primary school in Lancashire that is, like all schools in the state sector at the moment, being run presumably on a shoestring. I don't know that corner of Lancashire well, but it may well be that they're dealing with many of the consequences of austerity and the cost of living crisis that lots of people listening to this programme are currently dealing with. It may be that this is the kind of school where kids turn up hungry because they haven't had any breakfast. And that head teacher now has got to endure the full fury of the right-wing newspapers. I mean, it is just heartbreaking, really, because the fear that you feel if you're, what we might loosely describe as a civilian, if you're not in this game, if you're not in this business, you're a head teacher, you've made a perfectly defensible decision, whether you agree with it or not. It's not exactly a big deal, is it? Not when you've got the Queen's son knocking about with a paedophile and paying off a woman who's accused him of abuse, but, obviously, you've got to cover all of these issues. But in terms of the invitation that's being issued to you to get angry today, that's what this is about, okay? The 2 minutes hate, as Orwell would have called it. Doesn't really matter what the target is, because the tactics that are deployed to provoke you into furious hatred are identical. And this is a head teacher concerned about climate change, deciding that she will encourage and indeed perhaps insist that their children don't have meat for lunch. Shall we say that again? Because according to some of the coverage, what she's actually done is strap them all to a nuclear bomb and launch it into the stratosphere. A teacher, with the best of intentions, has decided that they won't be having meat for lunch at school. But parents have reacted with fury, with one mother threatening to move her daughter to a different school. Imagine her first day at her new school. Hi, who are you? I'm Doris. Why have you? What school did I used to go to Barrowford Primary School, but my mum has moved me here because she wants me to have sausages for lunch, and you're not allowed to at Barrowford. Couldn't you have vegetarian sausages, Doris? I don't know. Ask my mum. Seriously, I'm just so embarrassed by this whole sorry story. She even got quoted in the Daily Mail. Can you imagine how embarrassing that is for a 9-year-old girl? My mum having a hissy fit about pepperonis being quoted in a national newspaper. Well, honestly, what is the world coming to? Said 9-year-old Doris. It's banned meat from lunchboxes and its canteen in order to drive home the environmental impact of eating animals. It was introduced last year, as I told you, but parents didn't notice until a letter was sent out by the school on Thursday. They've even gone back, because this is the Daily Mail, they've gone back to an Ofsted inspection in 2015 in which the primary school was given an inadequate rating, but even the Daily Mail is not shameless enough to omit the fact that they achieved a good rating just 1 year later. That's journalism now. 2015, this school where they've banned meat got an inadequate rating. You know, it was good a year later, but make sure you go in hard on the inadequate rating. Zoe Douglas told The Sun that the meat-free rule was a joke. She said, "I think they forget that non-meat eaters and vegans have to take a lot of supplements." What supplements are they getting instead at that school? Nothing. Probably saving on food costs. God forbid they should be trying to save a few quid on food costs at a time of cost of living crises and... Oh, dear. And another parent who wished to remain anonymous, which sometimes on Fleet Street means that the following quotes have been completely made up. Possibly, probably, almost certainly not on this occasion. But generally speaking, I speak as someone who used to deal daily, in my days as a journalist, with a showbiz insider. A showbiz insider said last night, "Keith's conduct is absolutely indefensible. It'll be a miracle if he ever works on the James O'Brien programme again." Another showbiz insider added, "Keith's had this coming for a long time. Frankly, we can't believe he's been getting away with these levels of disrespect. It's high time these particular chickens came home to roost." So another parent who wished to remain anonymous said children should not be forced to give up meat. They are not being forced to give up meat. It's just one meal a day where they won't be having it. But don't let the facts get in the way of an invitation to get absolutely furious about something that is, in the great scheme of things, largely meaningless. I think it's largely meaningless. I could be wrong. That, spoiler alert, is going to be the phone-in. And to request that parents pack lunches that are veggie as well, not to mention the local farmers. Pardon? Not to mention the local... This is absolutely ludicrous. She's not wrong. The plan to take over the universe is built almost entirely on cheese sandwiches. Put a bit of ham in them, we'll be fine. We'll be golden. But if it's only cheese in your child's sandwich, then this time next week, they'll be trying to undermine democracy as part of a woke psychodrama, as described yesterday by Oliver Dowden, an actual member of Parliament, no less. In fact, the chairman of the actual Conservative Party. The chief executive of the Countryside Alliance told the Mail Online that schools should stay well clear of... I can't be cheese, honestly. OK, so I've set my stall out fairly robustly, I think it's fair to say. I need to tell you now, particularly if you're newish to this programme, and let's face it, tens if not hundreds of thousands of people are, I'd have been completely on the other side of this argument probably 5 years ago. I would have been doing an equally hilarious and challenging monologue from precisely the polar opposite position. I would have been raging against the tyranny of vegetarianism. OK, special prize now for regular listeners, going back a while, who know exactly which so-called joke I would make at this point in proceedings, back when I would have been arguing that the school was bang out of order for banning meat. Can you remember what the joke... Anybody? Shall I give you time on the text to remember what the joke was? The joke I would do, or at least the comment, the cutting, caustic comment I would make at this point when bemoaning vegetarianism and vegetarians and the inflicting of vegetarianism upon the meat-eating population. Can you remember what the joke would have been? It's quite long to write down, actually. I don't know if you're going to have time to text it. I'd have done this one, right? I'd have done this. And I'd have meant it. This is the point I really want you to understand. I would not have been doing it for performative... reasons. I would have really meant it. In my heart of hearts, I'd have passed a lie detector test, right? If you'd said to me, are you being serious, that stuff you said about vegetarians? And I'd have said, yeah, hell yeah. I'd have passed the lie detector test because I thought I believed it. There's an entire chapter in my book, actually, about the... No, it's not leather shoes. I wasn't that crass, although people still do that. Oh, may I just ask if your belt is made of leather? Well, then you're a massive hypocrite, aren't you? No, it's not that one. You've got 1 minute and 10 seconds to try and it's quite a long text you'd have to do, the thing about the thing. Yeah? Well, that I used to do. I got called a corpse-eating psychopath not long ago, when I was still in the... Oh, isn't vegetarian awful? No, they're disgusting. You got 50 seconds. No? All right, I'd have done this. I'd have gone, when we got married, we had to provide a vegetarian option for our vegetarian guests. But when our vegetarian guests got married, they didn't provide a meat option at their weddings. What's that about, eh? Edgy enough for you? 14 minutes after 12 is the time. What on earth is wrong? Oh, yeah, Stephen Whitney, I probably would have done the line about knitting your own clothes from armpit hair. That was another favourite of mine when talking about that section of society. The yoghurt fancying crusties who knit jumpers from their own armpit hair, says Tom in Manchester. You do pay attention, don't you? The idea of anyone truly being cross about this... Well, it's not ridiculous. People are truly cross about this because I would once have been one of them. So I can't have my cake and eat it, albeit that it's a meat-free cake. The question, I guess, is, has this head teacher done anything remotely wrong? Parents and campaign groups called for Tomlinson's resignation over her controversial approaches and blamed her for the school's decline from a good Ofsted rating in 2012 to inadequate just 3 years later, although it went back up to good 1 year after that. I mean, it is the most surreal thing, even by the standards of Mail Online, that I've ever read. We made our school lunches meat-free to demonstrate how each of us making a small change to our daily habits can have a much wider positive impact, and that reducing meat consumption is just one way to do this. So, all right, it's 12:15. Question number one. Have I swung too far the other way now? I mean, is there something questionable about this head teacher's decision? 03456060973. How relieved are you to discover that today, for one day only, woke means vegetarian? Why does a newspaper or a website have to pretend that these children are being frog-marched into a life of vegetarianism when it is one meal a day, and they'll be perfectly entitled to eat as much bacon as they please when they go home at the end of the evening, religious requirements notwithstanding? Or would you like to do the other thing and say, why did we get angry about this? Because I worked out why I did. I've already inflicted a fairly lengthy monologue on you, so I won't yet do. Although if you've read my last book, How Not to Be Wrong, The Art of Changing Your Mind, you'll know what I worked out. I tried to dig into why I used to be such a prat, frankly, on days like this. I could have written a Sun column on a day like today. I could have appeared on GMB shortly after claiming that death threats against Keir Starmer were no big deal, like Andrew Pearce did yesterday. I could have weighed in on why a school banning meat from its lunches was the end of civilization as we know it, and then I'd have gone home and written a speech for Oliver Dowden. But I was an idiot. I was a prat. And I worked out why. Why do you think these parents are apparently so cross, the ones that actually exist? Someone from an organisation called the Campaign for Real Education described this as an educational fantasy that was a betrayal of the children, or that might actually be another element of something else that's been done at the school. But anyway, this particular conversation is about banning meat from school dinners. What the hell is wrong with that? And what are these parents really angry about? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. And although, listen, I'm being pretty robust, but it's not a particularly important story in the great scheme of things. We allow ourselves a little bit of light relief in the final hour of the programme some days. So I might have got it completely wrong. There might be something grim going on here that I am just currently missing, and I'm in a pretty good mood, all considered. So if you want to bring to my attention the thing it is that I'm missing, I may even manage to muster up a little bit of gratitude. 0345 6060 973. 21 minutes after 12 is the time. A head teacher has got rid of meat from school dinners, and the predictable corners of the country, those who are persuaded that woke psychodramas are undermining Western democracy as we know it, are predictably furious. Quite a few of you are pointing out they should bring back meat but insist that it's halal, and then see the head spinning on their shoulders, on their axes. I don't know. I don't want to misrepresent any of these parents who are queuing up, in many cases anonymously, to tell right-wing newspapers how outraged they are. But what do you reckon? Amber's in Windsor. Amber, what's going on?
Hello, James.
Hello.
What an interesting topic today.
I hope
my
so.
son's actually meeting his head teacher today to ask to introduce halal meat as an option for lunchtime. My son and my daughter go to school in Windsor. They haven't ever had the option of having halal meals at lunchtime. They don't miss it. I'm able to provide for them any meat option they like in the morning and evening. And at lunchtime, they have... Do you know what? Their palette of food has just opened up so vastly. You know, they try so many different meals.
Does the school serve non-halal meat?
It does, yes.
Oh, OK, so they're excluded from eating meat by dint of their religion.
Yes.
I wonder how the Daily Mail had processed that one. It's outrageous that Muslim children are being forced into vegetarianism at school because of their faith, or indeed Jewish children. I don't think they'd be writing that in quite the same terms, would they, Amber?
Yeah. But my son is actually, he's 11 years old, and he wrote to his head teacher a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, he felt very passionate
hang on, Nadeem Zahawi will be round. He's not allowed to have political opinions like that. He's only at primary school. Seriously, Nadeem Zahawi's stormtroopers will be coming round to enact Oliver Dowden's defence of Western democracy against woke psychodrama, Amber.
No, but his head teacher has actually welcomed the conversation.
What? Communist?
And said, let's talk about this.
Good, that's actually brilliant. I'm laughing, but only because I'm a child. That's a great example for your boy of getting involved in sort of activism almost, and of the head teacher in encouraging him to be thoughtful and to lay out his arguments and to then at the end of it say, thank you very much, now clear off. Do you think he'll succeed?
I think he will. For an 11-year-old, he has really thought about this. He's actually spoken to a couple of his Arabic teachers and said, how should I go about having this conversation? What does it mean from my religious point of view? And he's also actively spoken to his friends who are able to eat, you know, meat at the school, and they've all welcomed the idea.
Yeah, but there's the point. They'll all welcome it, but then it'll get out that there's a primary school in Windsor that only serves halal meat, and the same people that are writing this story about how awful it is that there's a primary school in Lancashire that's not selling any meat at all will be furious for completely different reasons, and encouraging exactly the same people to get furious for completely different reasons about a completely different thing. Yeah. So we better pretend that you're not in Windsor and pretend that you're actually ringing in. That's incredible. I can't believe that you've rung in from Timbuktu, Amber. That's such a compliment. Are we big over there? Are we big in that corner of North Africa?
Let's just say it's a rather busy morning.
I know it is. Well, good luck. I mean, and obviously, what are you angry about is a question that no one's going to ring in and answer, but we can only speculate, I think. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. 24 minutes after 12 is the time. Paul is in Dublin. Paul, what do you reckon?
James, how's it going? Listen, I want to channel your inner prattiness with my next comment.
Yes, go on.
And that is that, my God, this teacher is only doing this while they're in school. She's not forcing them to be vegetarian. No. She should be forcing them to be vegetarian.
Well, she can't go home. We can't send in the fridge police.
No, well, let's resource her. You know, let's use some of the money. What was it? 4 billion that Rishi wrote off in fraud.
Well, apparently they haven't written it off. It's just it just goes to a different school.
Well, let it go to that teacher. No, but on a serious point, James, if your kids are doing something they shouldn't do, like sticking their hand in a fire, then as good parents or good teachers, you will stop them. So if somebody is doing something that's harmful, and by the way, not just harmful to the animals, but harmful to, in the ultimate issue to themselves, why should we not try to stop that happening?
Well, I know why.
Go ahead.
It's because deep down, they know you're right. See, deep down, really, really deep down, even the most passionate advocate of a carnivorous diet is aware that you have all the facts on your side. Possibly when we started having these conversations and the debates in the 1970s and the 1980s, there were not as many facts available as there are now. But the environmental impact of meat farming, and I know that some meat farmers will be upset about this, it is pretty much indefensible. It's a bit like... it's a bit like smoking. If it was invented tomorrow and no one would do it. It's something that's crept up on us. If we had never eaten meat and somebody woke up tomorrow and suggested doing it, I don't think anyone would do it. There's a brilliant Simon Amstel film, I don't know if you've seen it, where 50 years after eating meat was banned, no one can conceive of a society in which meat was eaten. But I eat meat, Paul, so I've got this cognitive dissonance going on. I know you're right, but the progress I have made as a human being is to acknowledge that you're right and that makes me wrong. And I need to make more progress, and I eat a little less meat every year. But the shame, if that's the correct word that I feel, or the guilt, or simply the embarrassment of knowing that you're right and I'm wrong, is what used to propel me to untold heights of pratishness in arguing and indeed being quite rude to people like you when you rang in on a subject like this.
Well, I'm glad that was a few years ago. But James, on that point, whatever helps actually you said you eat a little bit less each year. Whatever helps in that process, we should encourage. So if by shaming people or being heavy with people that discourages them, obviously we shouldn't do that. But it's not just an environmental issue; it's an economic issue. Tony Benn actually, years ago, he became a vegetarian because he found out that the sack of grain that you use to feed your pig, that when fattened and killed feeds 10 humans or 100 humans, the sack of grain will feed double that amount of people. So it's an economic reason.
It's interesting.
It's the environment. It's the environmental reason. It's health reasons. And it's also just natural phenomena. Like if you take, for instance, the skin pores of all herbivores, they're the same as ours. And the skin pores of carnivores are completely different. Take the intestines. Our small intestines are 22 foot long. If you dissect, which I'm not suggesting as a vegetarian, if you dissect a rabbit or a giraffe or an elephant, their intestines are proportionately the same length as ours. But if you dissect a carnivore. Like a tiger, a lion,
I just want to stress you're not encouraging anyone to dissect a giraffe.
I am. That'd be a pretty challenging operation.
It would.
But the carnivores, their small intestines are proportionately much, much shorter. Because meat, if you take a lump of meat, James, and throw it on the outside in your back garden or something, and come back a few days later, it'll be full of maggots and worms, and some of those come from within inside the meat. So the meat.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to stop you there, but only because I'm glad. I don't think they come from inside the meat. They're laid.
No, some do.
Insects lay eggs on it, and then the eggs hatch, and the stuff comes out.
Yeah, but some of the bacteria.
Yeah, but their bacteria is not a maggot, is it, man?
But they do develop.
No, I hear you. Listen, I know everyone. I mean, you'd much rather take your chances with a slightly manky banana than you would with a manky pork chop. I think that goes without saying. And you make some brilliant points. And I know why I used to be an idiot on this subject. And I know that I haven't made the journey across to non-idiocy completely. I'm sort of stuck in the middle on a little dinghy. But that might not be the reason other people are angry. Why are you angry about this? Why does because lots of people now have just had the blue touch paper blown out. You may have heard this story, you may have come across it in your newspaper or online, big on the LBC website today, and you may have actually joined in the invitation to get absolutely furious about something for no reason whatsoever. And now you've heard me explaining it to you, and you've gone, actually, God, he's right again. There's absolutely nothing to be cross about on this one. Christ, thanks, James. You're the greatest. What were you actually angry about before? And if you're still angry about a school that you've never heard of before, banning meat for one meal a day from children that you've never met, well, just talk me through why you're angry. And we'll do it again, because it's becoming a greatest hit. Why is it woke? 12:34 is the time. What are they, stroke you, angry about? A primary school in Lancashire has banned meat from lunch. 0345 actually won't get through. I should stop doing that. John's in Harwich. John, what would you like to say?
How you doing, James? You okay?
Fantastic, John. What's on your mind?
Good. I mean, it's not that bad, is it, that they've done it, and it's not outrageous.
It's actually
and it isn't
good.
the end of the world.
It's actually good.
Like you've been describing. Well, I'm torn because it is good on one way, but in another way it isn't. I mean, the gentleman before, he said about the bag of grain. To get the amount of protein that a human being needs for an average day, you'd have to eat about 10 bags of grain. So
no one's advocating for that, mate.
No, and it is a cheaper source of protein as well for the kids, and these are grown kids, and I think that, I don't know what he was talking about, the intestines.
Well, just tell me why you rang in. Don't worry about what he said.
So basically, I put myself and my daughter in that position. My daughter's at preschool at the moment, but she's going to be going up to primary school in September. I thought, how would I feel if I was told that by the school that we were only allowed to have vegetarian options? I'd be a bit annoyed. I'd probably just ignore it, if I'm honest, and stick a bit of ham in her sandwich, because that's what she likes, that's what she enjoys.
But you wouldn't notice. You wouldn't notice. They did it last term. No one noticed until they sent the letter out. So the parents that had still been doing it anyway, I don't know whether they were doing...
Maybe
sandwich
they
inspectors, doing the sandwich inspectors. But how old's your daughter?
She's 4.
She's not going to notice, mate, if she has a cheese sandwich or a ham sandwich.
She does.
Really? So you're raising a fussy eater?
No, I'm not raising a fussy. She's got a very well-rounded
What's wrong with a cheese sandwich?
Diet. It's okay, but variety is the spice of life, James.
She can have. She can have
a cheese
cucumber sandwich tomorrow.
Oh God, that bore off. That's awful. She needs a bit of protein in her diet. And that's the best way
she can have it for breakfast and for dinner. I mean, listen, I don't know how tongue-in-cheek you're being. It's one meal a day out of 3. And it is going to save money for the school, not so much on the pack lunch side of things, but on the.
Probably wouldn't save money for the parents.
Why not?
To be able to get an adequate amount of protein in each meal, sort of dietitians would say you want to.
John, I can patronise you a bit because your daughter's so young. Most of them are going to have chips and cake for lunch, mate, at school. This idea that they're going to walk in and say, I don't think I'm getting my daily protein quotient. Do you have any edamame beans?
That health is a reason to your argument.
Well, they're going to be encouraged to eat more healthily, but when you get to the age, when your daughter gets to the age when you're trying to encourage her to eat more healthily, instead of feeding her processed pork products, you will realise it's a very, very steep mountain to climb. So if you can take one bad thing off the menu, as opposed to all the bad things off the menu, then that's better than taking no bad things off the menu. Do you know what's missing from this story? And you've reminded me of this with your mention of your little girl. That none of the kids seem to be upset about it at all.
I think if I told my daughter she couldn't have ham in her sandwich, she'd be a bit.
She can have ham in her sandwich, just not the ones she takes to school.
Well, that's when.
As soon as she gets home in the evening, she can have a ham sandwich. She can have it for breakfast. She can have it for breakfast if she wants.
You can't have a ham sandwich for dinner or tea, depending where you live.
What, pardon?
Well, dinner or tea, you know.
Right, okay, mate. I think you're being serious. I kind of hope you're not. Terry's in Totnes. Terry, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Love what you do.
Thank you very much. It's okay.
I think it's a great idea.
Clearly, it's a great idea. Unless you're a 4-year-old girl who's addicted to ham sandwiches.
I think there's an awful lot of
cold turkey. Sorry. Carry on, Terry.
There's an awful lot of ignorance about food, and I think the school should be kind of like the frontier of introducing alternatives. And the poor kind of vegetarian kids don't get much of a menu because it's still considered to be, them. Whereas, it should be something that's more promoted.
And it's getting better all the time, I think. And I mean, a lot of children have a sort of de facto vegetarian diet, or very often take the vegetarian option at school if they're lucky enough to have one, because the food looks nicer. Also, quite a lot of people are pointing out, I didn't know this, so I'm not going to criticise Paul, there's more protein in cheese, I think, than there is in ham. So that was a bit of a red herring as well. Oh, red herring, can't have those either.
My son, at the age of 6, decided that he didn't want to eat meat anymore, and became a pescatarian at the time. And he's the only one in our family. But as a result of his choice, we all eat a lot less meat. And generally, it's gone from red meat, we've gone down to chicken and fish. So we've gone down a grade. And
have you noticed any changes? Do you feel better, or do you just feel better philosophically, or do you feel better physically?
I feel better physically. I think so much of what you do is subliminal anyway, or you feel like it's helping you, and therefore it does. So if you feel like you're making positive choices or healthy choices, it does help you.
And if you don't like it, then have meat for tea. I mean, I agree with you about what schools should be doing. They should be encouraging children to think about things, and if you think about things, then eating meat is it's just not a good thing to do. And I say that as a hypocrite, as you are as well. You're someone who still eats meat but knows that you shouldn't. But rather than just embrace or admit to that mild hypocrisy, you end up making ludicrous claims about leather shoes or the restriction of personal choice in the context of your child's lunchbox. It is actually comical, this story, but it's emblematic of a much bigger issue, isn't it? This attempt to portray anybody trying to do better as being an enemy of, as Oliver Dowden would call it, Western democracy. Tia is in Weymouth. Tia, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello,
I have an unusual eating disorder, but it is extremely popular. Mine started when as in it's growing.
Common,
it's growing. Mine started when I was a child. I have complex PTSD.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so I lived on peanut butter on toast for 2 years.
Crikey.
And it progressed from there, but I haven't eaten fruit or veg since I was 5.
I know a fellow like that. It's quite a well-known broadcaster. I don't know whether he's talked about it publicly, so I won't. I think he has, but I know someone who hasn't eaten fruit or vegetables since primary school.
Yeah, it can be. It can be a real struggle for a lot of people.
No, absolutely. But obviously, this wouldn't. Obviously, these kind of dietary rules at school wouldn't apply to people with specific conditions. You get an exemption, just like asthmatic kids don't have to play rugby.
Yeah, I would hope not.
No, I'm telling you, I'm making the decision. It's under my glorious rule that this is going to be enacted, and you would not have to obey. You wouldn't, if you can't eat it for psychological reasons, you would not be forced to do so. At my prep school, you would have been.
But then I think, because I am in support of the vegan argument, and I do try to eat vegetarian where I can, but I always think the argument falls when we're talking about eating disorders, and the term for the eating disorder I have is avoidant restrictive. And I think when you start to restrict any kid's diet, it leads into that diet culture, and it starts teaching children at a very early age.
Yeah, but again, it's only one meal. It's only one meal a day.
Yeah, I agree.
And you're not allowed meat. You're allowed anything else.
1 meal a day.
Yes.
For example, in our family, because my partner has the same eating disorder.
Really?
And
is that how you met?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a kind of.
No,
I don't
like a support
onions,
group.
neither do I.
Gosh.
But our son, he's only 7, and I pay for him to have hot meals at school.
Yes.
Because I want him to have a diverse diet.
More than he gets at home.
And I
fair
need
enough.
him to have.
No, I mean you're an exception. You're an exception that's proving the rule, not undermining it. Obviously, as with anything else that has exceptions to it, you can have dispensations and exemptions. Exception equals exemption, so don't worry. I mean, A, it's not going to happen anytime soon, and B, if it did, it's not going to be imposed with a rod of iron, is it? You also may have a medical condition where you have to eat meat. I'm not sure that there is such a thing, but if it exists, iron in particular, if you're not taking... So, listen, it's turned into a scandal by the same newspapers that have turned the country into a skip fire. And just every now and then it's important to point it out. But it's not going to be like a kind of a Stalinist requirement or a North Korean regulation. Mark's in Crawley. Mark, what would you like to say?
Hello, mate.
Hello, Mark.
So I was a free school meal when I was younger. And I wonder with the cost of living crisis and stuff going on, whether they're going to be taking away a substantial meal from kids. Yeah,
that's the most valid question about. It's not one that's been brought up by the Daily Mail, needless to say. But again, theoretically, I'd just say yes. Of course, you have a lovely plate of bean chili and rice with a nice bit of garlic bread on the side or something like that. There's loads of things. Loads. I mean, every vegetarian in the country eats a substantial meal every day, Mark.
Yeah. No, it's not. I'm not angry about it.
No, I know you're not. It's a valid criticism. It's a valid question. But here, you can have a vegetarian chicken Kiev and chips tomorrow if you want.
Okay, yeah, that sounds tasty.
Yeah, it is really nice. You can have veggie burgers now these days. Have you tried a Beyond Meat burger? Or I believe other brands are available. I mean, they're delicious. They taste just like the real thing.
My missus has been trying to broaden out my palate, so I eat corn now.
There you go. Then you see, that's a substance. You can make anything with corn. You can make a bolognese sauce. You can make a chili sin carne. You can make anything, a shepherd's pie. All this. They're substantial meals.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it was just a concern with.
No, it's a valid concern, and you need to. I mean, certainly this head teacher, given her interest in improvement and progress, I imagine the first thing she's going to do is make sure that the kids on free school meals, because it might be the only proper big hot meal a day you're getting, and she's going to make sure that it is a properly nourishing and substantial one. And if it isn't, then actually honest journalists would actually have a little story to write about that didn't involve trying to make people angry about stupid things. So you're the only one here with a valid point.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, don't hold your breath would be my advice. Thank you, Mark. 12:45 is the time. I want to find out a little more about this Prince Charles story. Charlotte Lynch, our correspondent, will be joining me shortly to do that. There may be time for a few more calls on this. Anyone genuinely outraged? Apart from the lad whose 4-year-old daughter is addicted to ham sandwiches. But as we've already established, she's going to have to go cold turkey. 12:49 is the time, and a primary school in Lancashire. Lots of schools, I'm learning, are vegetarian. Don't have meat. Some for sort of environmental reasons, some for other reasons. And of course, lots of schools don't have any hot meals at all, do they? I know Nick Clegg changed that, but hasn't it gone back into reverse again? I'm not sure. One more call on that, and then we'll catch up on this Prince Charles story with Charlotte Lynch. Not a great week for the royal family. I think it's possibly the understatement of the century, and then maybe time for another call after that. So if you think it should be you, then give us a buzz now. Alex is in Blackheath. Alex, what would you like to say?
Hello. Yes, we own a family butcher shop. So as you can imagine, it's close to our heart. But I think more than anything, it's about it's the mass production of things, I think, that people need to be worried about. And I think, keeping less is more, and but maybe buying less of everything. And a lot of those parents in that school probably do their online shop or go to the local supermarket. But food waste is one of the biggest problems with climate change, and I think
they'll be doing that. They'll be doing that in the school as well. And don't forget that unless things have changed a hell of a lot since the days of the turkey Twizzlers, these kids are not going to be serving up the kind of premium cuts and choices that you sell in your Blackheath butchery.
No, but
they're going to be having whatever the 2022 equivalent is of turkey Twizzlers.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because it should all be good food, really, that you're feeding the children.
No, I couldn't agree more.
And I just think that, it should be the quality over quantity, and that people need to look more at, it's less is more, and what you pay, you're paying for what's not in it, basically.
I don't think I've got much beef with you. Oh, well done. But equally, I think we'll disagree, won't we, on the question of whether or not it's okay for a school to just take meat off the menu for environmental reasons. Because it's not like they're not going to be able to have meat at home. And I think Mark's point about the kids who are only getting one big hot meal a day, that has to be accommodated. You're going to have to prove to me, headmistress, that these children are going to get a really good meal when they're having their dinners at school. But I can live. If I was a butcher, I'd be like a turkey voting for Christmas by supporting this idea. But can I go for the hat trick on this one, Alex? I need one more meat-based joke before the bell rings. I've got nothing. I don't want to duck the issue. No, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. So no, listen. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with it across the entire country, but it's not going to support family butchers, family high street butchers like yours, or like...
And I do think we need to support our small businesses, our small shops. Yeah. I think we need to go less is more with everything, really.
I like almost all of that, as I say, but I still can support the idea of that. Do you want to mention what the butchers is called? You don't have Nick Ferrari as a customer, do you, Alex, down in Black...
Yes.
Well, that's got to be half your annual turnover taken care of, hasn't it?
No, he's good. He is good.
He is now. He's very careful. Yes. What's it called again? Sorry.
GG Sparks Butcher.
There we go.
Blackie Standard.
Fantastic. I shall pop in and see you. I'll pop in for some black pudding if I'm ever in the area, just in case anyone needs more evidence of my hypocrisy when it comes to matters vegetarian. I am an absolute sucker for a good black pudding. Stornoway probably being my favourite brand, although a lot of butchers do their own. There's one on the high street in North Berwick that sells the Stornoway stuff, and then they sell their own. And their own one, could die for it. 12:53 is the time. Charlotte Lynch joins me now, LBC's correspondent. It's been suggested to me, Charlotte, that I probably did away with any prospect of getting a knighthood or indeed any sort of honour with my coverage of the Andrew Windsor story earlier today. There's another story involving another member of the royal family that suggests perhaps if I knew the right people or could pull the right strings, my chances of a knighthood may not yet have disappeared over the horizon.
Well, the Metropolitan Police have opened, James, an investigation into a cash for honours scandal surrounding Prince Charles's charity. Now, this follows allegations that a Saudi businessman who donated more than £1.5 million to the Prince's foundation was promised to get help to get British citizenship and a knighthood. Mahfouz Marai Murabak bin Mahfouz made his money in the Middle East in property and hotels. And in September last year, the Sunday Times and the Mail on Sunday published details of letters to and from one of Prince Charles's closest aides, Michael Fawcett, who was chief executive of the Prince's Foundation at the time, in which he expressed the charity's willingness to use its influence to help the tycoon get citizenship and to increase his honour from CBE, which he'd been awarded a year earlier, to Knight following his generous donations. Now, after these allegations emerged, Michael Fawcett resigned temporarily in September 2021.
He's been a bit of a fiddler's elbow, Michael Fawcett, over the years, hasn't he? He's resigned before and then sort of come back into the fold. Prince Charles said to rely very, very heavily upon him. But this final departure proved to be permanent.
Yes, that's right. So this, obviously following these investigations, and now it was said at the time it was temporarily, but now following this Metropolitan Police probe, which has opened, then that could definitely change things. But Mr. Mahfouz has also denied any wrongdoing. Now, the Metropolitan Police say they've assessed a letter from September 2021 after speaking to the Prince's Foundation, who conducted its own internal investigation. They've then given the police documents, and after looking at those, officers have decided there is enough evidence to start a criminal probe into potential offences under the Honours Act. Now, there have been no arrests and no interviews under caution as yet. In September last year, when this first emerged, a spokesperson for Clarence House said the Prince of Wales has no knowledge of the alleged offer of honours or British citizenship on the basis of donation to his charities, and fully supports the investigation which at the time was underway by the Prince's Foundation. Now this Metropolitan Police investigation is opened. The Foundation has said it would be inappropriate to comment on an ongoing investigation, but the charity is understood to be continuing to offer its full cooperation to the Metropolitan Police.
So watch this space.
Potentially.
Charlotte Lynch, thank you very much indeed. There was another story about this. The details just elude me slightly. There was a fella it was Camilla's nephew who was accused of profiting from giving ultra-wealthy clients of his concierge company, quintessentially, access to Prince Charles. This was an allegation levelled not long ago by a major party donor. Which party? Take a wild guess. And which nephew? A chap called Ben Elliott, who's also chairman of the Conservative Party. There was a bloke called Mohammed Amersi, a telecoms millionaire, paid an annual fee of £15,000 to be an elite member of the Conservative chairman's luxury business for several years before it organised in 2013 for him to fly to meet the Prince over an intimate dinner at Dumfries House in Scotland. That's one of those words that you only read in newspapers. What's an intimate dinner? I mean, don't know. Keith, stop it. It's a family programme. I know what... I mean, what is an intimate dinner? It's like a romp. Something that only happens in tabloid newspapers. This is the Times. What's an intimate... Oh.
No, that's not true.
What's an intimate dinner then?
I've had intimate dinners.
With Prince Charles?
No, that haven't ended up in a romp.
Have you?
Yes.
But what's the difference between an intimate dinner and a nice dinner, a cosy dinner?
Oh, there's a difference.
Is that what though? With Prince Charles, remember, it's not when you're courting.
It's all about the vibe, isn't it?
Is it so like low lights?
It's the vibe.
Not that many people there.
Yeah.
A nice sort of quiet dining room.
Yeah.
Lights turned low.
Yeah.
Bit of Chris de Burgh playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Le Poulet Pot is a good example.
Le Poulet Pot. I like it there. It's
very nice.
Okay, yeah. And well, no reason why a castle in Scotland owned by Prince Charles couldn't be the setting then for for an intimate dinner. It has been pointed out to me by my friend Scott that if I were a proper radio presenter, I would have got a vegan on with that butcher and manufactured a row between them in order to make some truly scintillating radio. And he's absolutely right. That's why every day is a school day. And none of us, even Sheila Fogarty, can lay claim to being the finished article in this curious conflation of trade and art that we call radio.